And five-time
Whoa, there we go.
Chris Bumstead.
All right, it's time to wrap this up. I just finished watching Classic Physique, and I'm going to spoil it right now. C-Bum wins his 5th Mr. Olympia Championship title, and he said it was basically like his hardest one ever. I mean, I feel like every time it's his hardest, but question is he now going to retire? I feel like he is going to retire. They didn't even want to ask him this time. He was saying, this was special. It was the most special. 10 weeks out, he hurt his lat, as in he tore his lat. He couldn't train his back for an entire month. Seems to be the pattern. Every year, Chris has something really challenging that he has to get through. And I feel like it's time for him to retire. I mean, I think he could literally win 5 more years in a row, maybe more. But does he need to? He's got 20 million followers. He's won 5 titles in a row. He wants to start a family. He has an autoimmune disease. What more does he have to prove? He wins by a mile. It's not close. It's not like, maybe he won, maybe Ramon Dino. A lot of people Ramon Dino. Like, literally, when Chris came out, he had the most cheers, the most applause. Classic Physique needs to have way more prize money. It's right up there with Open. To me, it's neck and neck. I'm not saying it's bigger than Open. I'm saying it's the same as Open. The same amount of excitement, the same amount of people that want to see it. They could have ended the night with Classic versus Open. It's there. Chris cemented Classic Physique. Chris made Classic Physique. If it wasn't for Chris, Classic Physique would not be where it is. And so they deserve way more money. I think there was 90,000 in prizes in total, and for Open, like 840,000 by memory. There's no way it's 10 times more popular. I think the prizes should reflect the category. But anyway, let's get into how everyone's looking. In 5th place, it was Terrence Ruffin, who had, in my mind, the best posing routine of the night. The transition from pose to pose, absolutely phenomenal. He puts in so much work into it. He did an amazing job, and he looked so much better than last year. He looked fuller, leaner. The posing was bang on, and so an incredible job. And in fourth place, Breon Ainsley, he brought it. I had counted him out. I did not think he was going to place near the top. I was thinking it's time for this guy to retire. It's not time to retire. It's time to keep going. This guy, he can keep going. He can keep improving. I think with the additional 7 pounds, and with him staying in Classic and not moving to 212, that was the right move. He looked like literally amazing. I would say the best he's ever looked in his entire life on this night. And he brought it, and obviously he's getting older, but he just keeps getting better. I don't know how he does it. He's like Dexter Jackson. He just keeps on getting better. How is he doing it? And so I fully thought 4th place, deserved it. I didn't think he had a chance for 3rd. He was a clear, distinguished 4th place. And so hats off to the guy. What an improvement. And in 3rd place, again, Urs, just like last year, Urs got 3rd place again. He put on a ton of size, and he had the conditioning. But it basically comes down to your genetics at this point. Ramon Dino's genetics in Classic are slightly better than Urs. And so I don't think Urs could have done anything better. I don't think he could have came in leaner or different in any way. I think he's a solid 3rd, deserved 3rd, great routine, entertaining, good-looking guy. Just going to have to keep competing, and hopefully that Chris can retire so that he can get out on top. I mean, he did an amazing job. And in 2nd place, Ramon Dino, who has an amazing fan base. So many people got up and were cheering like crazy for this guy. When Ramon came out, it was like, wow, you can really see just how popular the guy is. And remember, he's from Brazil. He's not even from the U.S., and people are going nuts for this guy. And so this guy, I mean, absolutely incredible. When he stands relaxed, he has the best physique. I think he has a better physique than Chris as he's standing relaxed. Now, once you go through the poses, pose for pose, you can then see how Chris stands out. Ramon Dino, better abs than Chris. Ramon Dino, better quads than Chris. But everything else, aside from the biceps, I feel like Chris had beat him. In particular, the side chest poses from the side, Chris is just so incredible. The crevices, the cuts in the side of Chris's leg are mind-blowing. And so Ramon Dino can't quite stack up to that. Ramon Dino, he can still get those biceps up a little bit higher. It would look a little bit better. But his posing has improved, and he put on a ton of muscle. This is the best Ramon has ever looked. and he still couldn't beat Chris. I mean, these guys are all coming in at their best, and they're all kind of the same as last year. Chris won by a lot last year. I felt like Ramon won a lot by last year. Now, the way I'm saying, you're thinking, no, it was close. Okay, think of it like this. If Ramon had won, let's say he had won, it would have been the biggest upset in the history of the Mr. Olympia. It would have been the most shocking win ever. I don't know what would have happened in the crowd. People would have been looking at each other. It would have been talked about for a week. It would have been like, what just happened? And so it wasn't close. If you're thinking, no, he just barely lost out, if Ramon Dino had 10 more pounds of muscle, I don't think he would have won. He would have perhaps beaten Chris in a bodybuilding contest, but he wouldn't have won in this competition. Chris is simply the GOAT. There's no one that I think could have a chance of I don't think that there's any guy in the top 10 that could have just, say, changed your physique. It wouldn't have made any difference. And like to make give another shout out to Wesley Vissers, who was massive, literally bigger than Chris Bumstead. I don't think I saw anyone else that had more muscle than Chris, except for Wesley Vissers. He had an incredible vacuum, incredible arms. He looked amazing, but just not quite as let's call it classic as Chris Bumstead. But Wesley was really a top looking guy. I was impressed by his physique, absolutely. I know a few years ago I made a prediction. I didn't think he'd ever make the top 10. He proved me wrong. He came and just nailed it. It's unbelievable how some of these guys look. And so what really sets Chris apart in terms of the posing, it has to be his vacuum pose. His vacuum pose is probably the best in the world. Aside from maybe Derek Lunsford. Derek Lunsford's vacuum is sick. It's unbelievable, especially with how much extra muscle he has in his upper body. But Chris just has that look, and it's amazing to see Chris. I only first heard of him. He was being coached by Ian Valère years ago. I was coaching Ian, and he sends me a pic of this kid. He's like 18 years old, and he's 200 and something pounds shredded, and I'm like, who is that guy? And it just it didn't make sense. Chris was working his way up. He had under 10,000 followers then. And to think that he would have got up to 20 million, I never would have thought it. I mean, I thought he was amazing, incredible, but I never thought he'd get to this point. Did anyone actually? I mean, is he going to continue on and surpass Arnold? I mean, it's possible at this point. I mean, all that's left is for him to get into movies or acting or something, because I mean, it's absolutely surreal. He's more popular than anyone. They were talking about Batista, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, Chris is at Shaquille O'Neal level. It's literally that incredible. And so Chris made an amazing speech at the end. I mean, this guy, he just knows exactly what to say. You can tell he's so happy with his win. He's so passionate. He's so emotional. And he wears his heart on his sleeve. Everyone knows exactly how he feels. Everyone can feel his energy, feel his vibe, feel his emotions as he's speaking. And so he's done an incredible job. There's nothing left for him to do. I don't think he can do any better. If I was the Olympia, if I was the IFBB, I would be contacting Chris and saying, what can we do to make sure that you compete one more time? We want you to be a part of this sport. We want you to be the biggest ambassador of all time. And obviously he is. And so reach out to Chris, say, what can we do to improve the sport? What weight classes do you want? What do you want us to do to make sure that you can keep competing? Is there anything that we're missing? Can we listen to would you want us to lower the weight classes by 10 pounds? You want us to raise them? What do you want, Chris? Because Chris is the most important person in the IPB right now. Chris is basically carrying the IPB. He's so crucial to the sport. And so is he going to retire? I mean, personally, I want him to be healthy. I want him to be happy. I would love to see him compete. I would love to see him keep competing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I'm selfishly wanting him to keep going. Selfishly not wanting him to retire. But also at the same time, being a 48-year-old guy and looking back at Chris I don't know, how old is he? Is he 28? Does he really need to do this? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to live longer than last time but continuing to compete? And so only Chris knows that. I don't know his health. I don't know how his autoimmune disease is affecting him. Perhaps he just barely does anything. Maybe he does the show and then relaxes for 3 months and then just says, I'll train 6 months of the year and I'll just come back each year. Maybe he can do that. Certain bodybuilders have done that in the past. But every year he gets an injury. The lat injury, the hamstring, the shoulders. He seems to consistently be battling something. And so maybe he'll go for it next year. Maybe he'll say, okay, assuming I'm not injured, I'm just going to compete. And if I get an injury next year, if anything happens, I'm going to retire then. I don't think he's going to make any announcements. I don't think it would be good for him to make a retirement. He needs to decide later. He just won. He needs to celebrate. He needs to take it all in, to let it sink in. And months later, perhaps 3 months, 4 months out, whenever he decides it's time to prep, then he can decide. And maybe he starts the prep 16 weeks out, and 8 weeks into it, if he has no injuries and things are good, I'm doing it. He's going to win. If Chris competes, he's winning the competition. I cannot imagine him showing up at anything over 4% body fat. I cannot see anyone competing with that kind of conditioning, size, shape, symmetry. There is no newcomer that we have not heard of that can suddenly just show up and beat him. There's no one in the top 10 that's even close. Even if they all add 10 pounds of muscle, they're not beating him. And so Chris is going to win. He's here to stay. Is he going to retire? Time will tell. Hope you enjoyed this wrap up. I absolutely love this. This is the best Olympia I've ever seen in my entire life. It was amazing to see in person. The crowd was electric. They were excited to see everything. Hopefully you love this. Hopefully you enjoy the sport as much as I do. Hope to see you at next year's Olympia. Ending it here. Remember, if you want to support me, you can always get my cookbook or any of my cookbooks, also the training books, coaching plans by me and my team. I even have a Harder Than Last Time clothing line. Get all that. And if you have no money, got you covered. A free diet and training program. Head over to my website. You're going to love it. Free diet and training program. It's almost 50 pages in length and it's free. We're here to help everyone to get in the shape of their life. Subscribe and click that freaking bell button. Like the video if you did in fact like it. Don't forget to watch 2 of those bloops. Watch them both. Do it for me. And until next time, I am out.